Welcome, Lynton here. Welcome to Sketch and Tell, and a special welcome again to the students at St Paul's Warragul. This is the second part of my series entitled Colours of Life, and I'm exploring those primary colours, red, yellow and blue, and exploring their associations with our feelings and our emotions and our responses to life as it comes. In the last section I did blue, looking at our search for calmness and tranquility in the midst of chaos and noise and conflict. And I'm still sticking with blue because in a paradoxical way, each of these colours represents very different aspects of our life. Blue, well, take yellow. Yellow, as I said, can be for happiness and joy, but it can also be for fear or cowardice. Blue can stand for not just calm, but it can also be when we are depressed. We sing the blues. I'm feeling down and blue. And that's what I'd like to explore this morning while I'm in lockdown. I'm going to get one of my favourite blues. And this blue is just a beautiful, bright, vibrant blue, and it is called ultramarine blue. And I used to think that the reason it was called ultramarine blue is because of the colour of the sea, marine. But actually there's a very different reason why it was called ultramarine blue. It's interesting. One of my favourite artists, he was more of a sculptor than an artist, but he did paint some amazing artwork in the Sistine Chapel, but also on canvases that you can go and look at in galleries. But Michelangelo, in one of his paintings, he has this beautiful ultramarine blue in the sky and in some of the clothes that the people are wearing. But there's one woman standing who has her garments unpainted, left unfinished. And the thought is that when Michelangelo was using that blue, he ran out. He was going to paint the garments this beautiful, vibrant blue. And because this blue is so rare to get, back in his time, if you're an artist in Europe, the only place you could get this blue was to go to Afghanistan, and there a rock that was called lapis lazuli was mined deep in the earth, beautiful blue rock, and it was crushed to form the pigment for this blue. And you had to travel a long way over the Mediterranean Ocean to get to this rock and then bring it back, and that's why it was called ultramarine, way over the ocean. And it is thought that Michelangelo just gave up waiting for this blue, and because he was young and impatient, he moved on to other works and it was left unfinished. But nonetheless, I'm going to paint a picture that is going to be one to help me just wrap a few of my own personal thoughts around in regards to depression, because I am someone who has always wrestled and still does wrestle with depression. So let me begin. I'm the man who has seen trouble coming from God. He took me by the hand and walked me into pitch black darkness. He turned me into a scarecrow of skin and bones, then broke the bones. He hemmed me in and ganged up on me, poured on the trouble and hard times. He locked me up in deep darkness like a corpse nailed inside a coffin. He shuts me in so I'll never get out, manicures my hands, shackles my feet. Even when I cry out and plead for help, he locks up my prayers and throws away the key. He sets up blockades with quarried limestone. He's got me cornered. Ground my face into the gravel, he pounded me into the mud. I gave up on life altogether. I've forgotten what the good life is like. I said to myself, this is it. I'm finished. God is a lost cause. You know, I'll never forget the trouble, the utter lostness, the taste of ashes, the poison I've swallowed. I remember it all. Oh, how well I remember the feeling of hitting rock bottom. This amazing creature was hauled up from the deep trenches off New Zealand. In fact, the only place it is found is either there or off the coast, the east coast of Australia, or Tasmania. And it was called, aptly, the blobfish. And it is the most saddest creature. In fact, it was given the title when this image was kind of went viral around the world, and people called it the most, not only saddest creature, but the most ugliest creature. I mean, if you were given that title, you'd be feeling really sad about yourself. But the blobfish, for me, I'm going to just let it represent just some of the thoughts that I have about depression, and depression is very complex. But I was reading out, as I was doing this painting, what it feels like to be not just down in the dumps or having a bad hair day or just feeling frustrated or annoyed, but to be really depressed, where you feel there's no way out and it's affecting you in all areas of your life. Some of the language that is used in that reading, I think it's very poetic, but nonetheless it describes what it's like. It's written by an anonymous author. The book is found in the Bible, called Lamentations, and this was his lament, his personal expressing his grief and his depression towards God. And he uses imagery like being in pitch black darkness. It affected him physically. He couldn't eat. He felt like he was just a skeleton, a walking skeleton. He felt like he was locked up in deep darkness. And there are many images that are used of death. In fact, one of the images here is not just being locked up in deep darkness, but being like a corpse in a coffin deep in the ground. He felt there was no one who understood him. There was no help, no way out. There was no hope. And he also said he could not remember what it was like to be happy. And there was no joy, there was no colour in his life. That's the kind of depression that I am talking about. And what I do for myself, and as I said, I'm just sharing some personal things that I find helpful now, not just to maintain my sense of well-being when I'm going okay, but also to, as a checklist. I actually have these written up in front of me in my study, so I can look at them regularly. And the way I'm going to talk about these little helps is by looking and thinking of the blobfish. Now, the blobfish is a creature that lives only in the deep, deep trenches. It is under tremendous pressure all the time. That's its home. That's its safe place. It's found in areas about 300 meters down in the ocean. But instead of being crushed like normal sea creatures or people, it has evolved itself in a way that is unique. And it has to do with internal structures and external structures. Internally, its bones are very soft, so they won't be crushed or cracked. Its flesh is very gelatinous, like jelly-like. And it's just slightly less dense than water. So unlike other sea creatures who have an internal air bladder to help them float, this guy just relies on this flesh to just stay afloat. But because it hasn't got many internal strong structures like other sea creatures, it relies actually on the pressure externally to hold it together, to keep its proper shape. So as we look at the blobfish now, this is not what it normally looks like in the deep sea. It's actually quite different. It's more filled out. It's got a different shape to it, and it looks a lot happier. When you haul this guy out of its natural environment, it just kind of collapses into a blob, hence the word blobfish, into a gooey mess. And so as I think about those internal and external structures, I think about some of those external structures that I need to keep in place. And when I'm really depressed, I just kind of think about them. Am I, first of all, keeping in touch with my friends, those people who I normally connect with? Am I shutting myself off from them, not opening up to them, keeping to myself? Am I keeping in contact with my community, whether it's my school community, whether it's a sporting community, or am I disengaging? Am I keeping in contact, and this is really important when I'm feeling down, am I reaching out and making some kind of connection with a professional counsellor, a trusted adult, or someone who you can open up to and share what's going on? Because there might be the need to get some guidance, not just with the way you're thinking and feeling, but also with medication and professional help. And then I think about my internal structures. And I think about, am I keeping my head in a right space? Am I watching the right things? What am I thinking about? Are they constantly dark and dangerous and unhealthy? I think about my eating habits, my sleeping habits, my exercise habits. Has there been a big change in any one of those, or all of them? And for me, more importantly, and for those who take their spiritual journey seriously, as the author of Lamentations, is my connection with God healthy? Is it open? Is it soft or is it hard? Am I closing up? So for me, I'd like to just encourage you, and I really do, because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of courage. If any of those structures are breaking down or broken, you need to do what this blobfish can't do on its own. It can't get back into the ocean unless I put it back in there. But we can take that first step to reach out to someone who can help us in a healthy way. And I'm going to just finish off by reading the next part of the Lamentations of the author who was describing how he was feeling, but he took that courageous step in his own journey of reaching out to the person who was most important in his life, and that was God. But I also think the fact that he wrote this down as his inner journey, that he also was reaching out to others who are going to read it, probably to his friends. This comes from Lamentation chapter 3. And halfway through, just after him expressing how he was feeling, he says, I remember that my soul is downcast within me, yet this I will recall. And therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not abandoned. He doesn't let go of us. For his compassions, his love, his mercy never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion. Therefore I will wait for God. The Lord is good for those who hope in, who trust in him, and who seek him and wait patiently. I think it's time to put our blobfish back into the ocean where it belongs. Thank you for listening, and have a colourful day.